I think this is going to, as I think Eunice picks up some very interesting points, and on the back of, the Deutsche research that she was alluding to, I think one of the key issues here as the new tariffs come in, one, is it going to lend to a capitulation by the Chinese in terms of the terms that they agree? Probably not. But more importantly, what's it going to have in terms of impact on the US consumer? Thus far, the tariffs that have been imposed or threatened to be imposed have been on a sort of a non-consumer goods basis. As President Trump becomes more belligerent and more wider-reaching in his tariffs, then by definition he's going to grab or move into that consumer goods space. So in actual fact, while it may have limited impact on, it'd be damaging but limited in terms of the outlook for Chinese exports, the more pressing issue with those consumer goods could be the imported inflation that these tariffs bring into the US. That in turn will feed into sort of hawkish rhetoric from the Fed, or expectations of further rate increases from the Fed, which of course we've heard from President Trump over the last or over recent weeks that he's not in favour of. So he really needs to be careful what he wishes for in terms of imposing these tariffs more broadly and the inflationary impact that can bring on the US.
Simon, I agree with you. That's certainly something that investors are on guard here for, is the inflationary impact from perhaps this new round of tariffs. But as you talk about President Trump's behavior on the trade front, I mean, we can't really look at this in isolation from what's going on back at home in Washington. The piece in the New York Times today, just the latest element of trouble, if you will, facing the White House. And I wonder if in some ways this is going to prompt President Trump to really go even further on trade than some of his advisors may want him to.
Well, we're coming up to the midterm elections, and, I probably wrongly had thought that he might sort of ease back on some of his comments and his rhetoric as we got towards the midterms to try and sort of broaden his sort of electoral appeal, should we say. But in actual fact, I think you're right. I think he's becoming more sort of dogged and entrenched in his views and his approach to trade and more generally to his policies, feeling sort of emboldened as he goes into the midterms. And obviously he has a very, very clear support base across the Republicans, if not further afield. So it'll be very interesting. At the end of the day, trade wars, he's not actually trying to create and trigger a global trade war. He's trying to renegotiate the position of the US from a trading perspective with its overseas trade partners, just as it was trying to renegotiate, continues to try to renegotiate with the withdrawal from the JCPOA earlier this year. So let's put it into context. So he's actually trying to improve the macroeconomic conditions for the US rather than trigger global trade. But in the short term, the uncertainty that surrounds that is clearly driving sort of negative sentiment.
And Simon, when you look at this, as you say, from the trade perspective in particular, it's all about, for President Trump, he says, getting a better deal for America. This certainly, when you look at the U.S.-China trade spot, is a major test of his presidency. If you take a step back there and try to look at it more from a geostrategic perspective, we know, of course, Henry Kissinger supposedly advising the president to use Russia to work on China, to use China to work on North Korea. When you look at this as an investor, how positive are you that there is going to be an outcome that would really mean some stability in those markets, especially given the fact that the U.S. president, at least so far, has failed, it seems, to work with these leaders?
Yeah. Well, that's, I think you've hit the nail on the head there, and it's a question of taking a short-term view versus your long-term view. And while in the long term, yes, we might expect to see sort of increased and improving stability across the markets, in the short term, the uncertainty is driving investors obviously to the sidelines and creating sort of a risk-averse sentiment across the investment parameters. But longer term probably positive, but short term, as we've seen with the reflection through the emerging market space, particularly with high beta, low rated EM sovereigns, the global trade concerns continue to cast that veil of uncertainty across the global market.
Hey everybody, it's Hadley Gamble from our new CNBC Middle East Bureau in Abu Dhabi. Thanks for stopping by. Now, to watch more, you can try one of the videos that just popped up on your screen. And don't forget to subscribe.